Oh, I remember what I was doing. The fucking obsidian. What the fuck now again? I forgot how to do it. How to do that, bro. What is it? Powder? Hold on. No. There's no way it's powder. Prominence. And essence. Fuck. Well, there's already one. And then we need a bunch of crystal. You know what? And the pearl. Bruh. Eh? Don't get mad at me. Jesus. What the fuck? Dude, don't get mad at me, bro. I'm like nobody. Oh, where's that guy? Holy shit. Why are they mad? Already? Why are they mad? Oh, they're just mad at each other now. I think he's in the sky or somewhere, but I don't know. Be in the sky. Holy shit, where is it? Dude, come on, man. It's not worth it. Dude, where is it? The fucking now guy. Oh my god, dude. Now guy, where is it? Oh, he's hitting everyone. Let's go, fuck him up. Yo, not me. Fuck him up, guys. go, bitch ass. We got obsidian. Dude, the thing about that guy is just, I don't know, it's unlucky if you do that. It's like, you know, just what it is. Honestly. What can you do with this? Oh yeah, this shit is crazy. Yeah, it's good. It's good. Right now, it's just this. Turn away. Oh. So it should not escape the thing. Alright, take a break. Oh. Actually allow for me to do. I don't need this anymore. Stop C. So I use my flax, so it doesn't carry over. I think. It's flax plus. What else? Should I do meditation? I could, honestly. No, I don't want to. Wash dishes. Oh my god, I could do that, yes. I do need to go. Wash dishes. Should I eat the potato? No, the french fries. You are back. Here's the idea, guys. Once he leaves the area, we stop attacking, okay? And wait for that 30-second shadow.
Back. You are anything but unharmed, he replied, his golden eyes scanning hers. Who is the woman, Soren? She demanded, her voice lethal. Not the same one from your dream. Then my well-being is still none of your concern. Get the hell out. She flung off her hood and began unbuckling weapons, Cassius catching them before they could clatter to the ground and wake up the house. She removed her jacket and kicked off her boots and socks. She pulled her tunic from over her head, leaving just the band around her breasts, and crossed the room, crawling into Cassius's still-made bed without another word. She felt the bed shift as Cassius climbed onto the bed, and her whole body relaxed when he began stroking her hair. Tears slid down her cheeks as she tried to hold in a new round of sobs, threatening to wrap her body. Her history is complicated, she heard Cassius say.
Oh.
When there was no reply, he said,
What the fuck is it?
It would be
I got.
to be gone before the house wakes.
If
Soren said anything in response, Scarlet didn't know. She did not care, as she felt a familiar hollowness settle into her soul. Chapter 18. Soren. Soren stood in the foyer of the Tyndale Manor. They had just finished the weekly dinner meeting of generals and commanders with Lord Tyndale. Nearly everyone else had left, and it was just him, Cassius, and Drake now, Mikhail having left moments before. I am going out to meet some of the men for a drink. You two coming? Drake asked, adjusting his sword belt. No, Cassius said. He cut a quick glance to Soren before adding, I'm just going to bed. I haven't been sleeping well. Drake gave a slight nod of understanding and slipped out the door. When the door had clicked shut, Soren rounded on him. She is still in your bed. Cassius dragged a hand through his brown hair. She has not left it once since that morning. That was 2 days ago, Soren hissed. As if them discussing her was a summoning, she appeared at the top of the stairs. She was pale and in the same clothes.
I discovered a way to do it.
Although at least she put her tunic back on. She seemed to float down the stairs, her long hair unbound and flowing around her. She was barefoot and walked right by them like she didn't even notice they were there. Scarlet, Cassius whispered. She kept walking straight to the front door. Soren took a step to the side, blocking her path. She paused and lifted her chin, and the haunted eyes that found him nearly made his knees buckle. He could smell another scent intertwined with her own, one of spring rain and pine, and he ground his teeth together. Where are you going, sister? Cassius asked gently, coming to her side. I want to play, she whispered. Scarlet, we can't go back to the Black Syndicate like this. You have no weapons. No one will spar with you. He will not let you take any jobs right now. Cassius trailed off.
Like that, guys.
I need
Idea
to play,
is this.
she repeated.
But the thing is, what if I get attacked? You won't.
Cassius reached for her arm, but she jerked out of his reach, again trying to step around Soren. Cassius shook his head at Soren in silent command, and he stepped in front of her again.
Bro, I don't know, bro.
She does not want to spar or fight or kill anyone. Tava was descending the stairs now, a cloak in her hands. She wants to play, Cassius. I am told it has been over a year since she has done so. Take her somewhere to play the piano. She pressed the cloak into Cassius's hands and headed down a hall. Cassius turned, wrapping the cloak around Scarlet and doing up the buttons. We will have to ride, Scarlet, and even then, I don't know that going there like This is a good idea. She plays the piano, Soren asked quietly. Cassius looked up at him. She does. Or she did. She hasn't played in a long time. There isn't one here. There's one at the compound where her mother worked, and one at the fellowship, but I can't take her to the Black Cynthia like this. Follow me, Soren said. We can walk. They tried to convince Scarlet to put shoes on, but she refused, constantly trying to skirt around them and out the door. Cassius ended up carrying a pair of silk slippers in his hands, and Soren led them the few blocks from there to his luxury apartment. Cassius kept a firm grip on her hand as they rounded another corner. She continued to say nothing, just walked along in silence, her bare feet not making a sound on the pavement. She was a phantasm in black, with her silver hair flowing in the cool summer breeze, and he could feel her. He could feel an icy sadness that clung to her bones. He could feel a flame so hot trying to thaw that ice that it was suffocating. Soren unlocked the door to his apartment.
What? Where is it?
The room to light a few candles. Cassius
Bro.
gently pushed Scarlet farther into the room so he could shut the door behind them. He took the cloak from her shoulders, and Soren pointed to the back left corner of the room where a grand piano sat. There. Her eyes settled on the
Oh, holy
instrument,
shit.
and as if it called to her,
What
she
the fuck?
drifted over to it.
What do I do, guys?
Soren crossed his
Oh my
arms,
god, dude.
leaning against the fireplace mantel as he watched her. Cassius stood motionless by the front door, seeming to hold his breath.
Which one's which?
She ran her fingers along the top, like she was contemplating what she was going to do. A finger drifted down and hovered over a key. Play, Scarlet, Soren urged in his mind, and as though she heard him,
Don't tell me they fell like into some
it was a low note,
elite
but it seemed
beings.
to snap a tether in her.
I'm down with this if this fell in the room. Oh my
Silent
god,
tears wet her
she's
cheeks as she leaned
dead.
on the couch. She
No.
brought her small hands to the keys, and a chord sounded.
Okay, GG.
A minor chord, haunted and full of sorrow.
Why don't you tell me?
She stumbled over the keys
Okay,
for a
stay here,
few
stay here,
moments,
stay there.
like she was reminding her fingers what they should be doing. Then Soren could only stare
Jesus,
in awe
what the
as she
fuck is
played. Soren knew how to play the piano. He could read sheet music and play songs, but Scarlet could play. Her eyes were closed and tears splashed onto her hands as her fingers flew over the keys of ivory and ebony, never missing another note. He could feel every sound, every crescendo, and every pulse of the music. Her melody was one of sadness and pain and grief. Cassius crossed the room to stand beside him as she finished one song and went straight into another. She seemed to breathe in the sounds emanating from the piano. She's going to kill me for letting you see her play, he said quietly, his eyes fixed on her. Why did she stop? Soren asked. He could hardly get the words past the lump that had formed in his throat. Because they put her in a cage, Cassius said simply. Tonight I do not need to be reined in. Tonight I need to be let out. Her words clanged through him. What happened? Soren snarled softly. That is not my tale to tell. We have tried to coax her out of that cage for over a year, but now that she has tasted this freedom again. He trailed off for a beat, but then said, Why did she call you Soren the other night? Soren tensed. When Cassius had not asked him the next day, he had thought the commander had missed when she had called him by his real name. Because that is my name. Who put her in a cage in the first place? Soren demanded. He would explain about his name later. His eyes were fixed on Scarlet as she swayed and moved with her melody, as if every minute she played was another release. People who will do whatever they can to shove her back in it, Cassius answered grimly. Scarlet. She didn't know how long she'd been playing. It could have been minutes or hours. She suspected the latter as she settled back into herself. Every song was like gulping down a breath of air when she hadn't even realized she'd been suffocating. Sweat beaded her brow, and her cheeks were stained with trails of tears. She could still smell Callan on her hair, on her skin, and her song that had transformed into major chords transitioned abruptly back to the minor keys she'd been exhaling. Movement out of the corner of her eye snagged her attention, as the owner of that movement seemed to sense the sudden shift in her song as well. Her fingers kept moving over the keys as she realized she didn't know where she was. She took in the doorway on the wall to the right that she guessed led to a kitchen, seeing as the dining table was across the room from her. It was piled high with books and papers, and sitting at it, reading reports of some sort, was Soren. He had stiffened slightly when her song had switched keys, but his eyes remained on the papers he was studying, almost as if this had been happening all evening. She didn't know. She didn't really remember anything after crawling into Cassius's bed after that night.
I think this
The
stray
minutes
obsidian.
stretched into hours. The
So
hours into days.
that's why I'm like doing like
How long ago had that been? Without missing a beat, she looked over her shoulder. Cassius was stretched across a sofa before a hearth. There was a small fire in it, but it was more for light than warmth.
Okay.
He had a book propped open. The windows were unlatched, letting in the stifling night air. She breathed in deep, and her fingers clanged to a stop. Soren and Cassius both snapped their heads up to her. She stood from the piano bench, and Cassius was instantly on his feet. She saw Soren's sword belt discarded on the floor by his seat, and she snatched it up, drawing the blade from the sheath and staring at the window. "Scarlet," Cassius said cautiously. Soren was on his feet now too, though not in front of her, guarding her, but beside her. He had a dagger resting casually in his own hand. "She is here," was all he said.
Did you break it?
A moment later, a shadow came in from the window. "Well, well," came her voice of silk and honey. "Look who finally got
Just
out
get
of bed."
out.
She stood before them in her black clothes of death, and had Soren not been standing next to her, she would have pulled that hood back and punched the girl in her face. Rage coiled around her insides, and she felt as if the sword hilt burned against her palm. "Get out," Scarlet said quietly. Her voice was icy and venomous and razor sharp
Is it better
all at
to
once.
not have any?
"You
Like, what if I
said
just
you'd
use
come to me in 2
plus?
days' time.
Like,
It's been 2 days," Mary answered, perching on the
Or
edge
like
of the sofa.
simply do
"What
like
happened with Callan,
lane
Scarlet?"
carry?
Scarlet staggered back a step at the name, and Soren pressed a hand to her back to steady her.
You know what I'm
She
saying?
could feel Mary studying her underneath that damn
Alright.
hood.
Please.
"I see. Gods, no wonder you look like a wraith right now." "Do not call me that," Scarlet hissed, pointing the sword at Mary.
Oh,
It was
shit.
heavier than her own sword, and was slightly awkward to hold, but she held it steady. "That's what we are, isn't it?" Scarlet could hear the smirk on Mary's face. "But I suppose I did forget that's what he calls you too, His wraith of shadows." Scarlet lunged, but Mary was just as fast as she blocked Scarlet's sword. Again and again she swung, Mary blocking her each time. She saw Cassius move to intervene, but the sound that emanated from Mary froze him in place. "Do not come to her rescue, Cassius," she panted as she parried another attack from Scarlet. "This is not the time for this, nor the place," Cassius snarled back. Mary was striking back with such force now that Scarlet's arm was shaking under the awkwardness of Soren's blade. "Come out, Scarlet," she taunted with glee. "Come out to play." "I will kill you for making me do that," Scarlet growled back. "Not with that blade you won't," Mary scoffed, lunging again. Somehow, she knew what he was doing, without having to look at him. Scarlet reached behind her back and grabbed the dagger that Soren was holding out to her. Soren, who had been training her, and who had taught her how to fight with an off-balance blade. Then she did indeed come out to play. Soaring. She was a whirlwind of wrath and rage and steel as she pushed Nuri back and back and back in that spacious apartment. Cassius had fallen silent, and Soren monitored everything from the side. He had sparred with her so many times that he had never seen her move like this. She moved as if she had indeed been caged and confined, but was now freed to unleash hell. He could tell his sword had been hindering her, and before he could say her name, she had reached behind for his dagger that he had already had outstretched to her. Nuri matched every movement, every thrust and lunge, like she knew exactly how Scarlet would move. Until she didn't. Until Scarlet whirled fast enough and used a move he had taught her to land a clean kick to the woman's chest. Nuri went sprawling to the floor, and Scarlet was atop her in an instant. Miraculously, the hood still covered her face, and her gloves remained intact. He still had not glimpsed the woman's features. Scarlet yanked back the collar of the girl's jacket and sliced a thin line down the entire length of the girl's collarbone, right below a spirit amulet she wore. Blood trickled down the girl's pale skin. "Scarlet!" Cassius cried, lunging forward.
Don't get it.
Soren
What
gripped
does
his
that work?
arm, but Cassius stopped cold as Death's shadow crooned with absurd laughter. "There you are. Welcome back, sister." Scarlet brought her fist back and punched her hard in the face. Death's shadow merely laughed again from under that hood. "How dare you send me back there, Nuri? How could you do that to me? To him?" Cassius sucked in a breath as the name crossed her lips. His wide eyes came to Soren's face, confirming he had in fact heard it. So, Death's shadow indeed had a name. "He became a distraction," Nuri spat. "He distracted you, and it laid the groundwork for you to be shoved into a cage. They didn't even have to shove you in. You stepped in willingly. When the time came, they just had to close the fucking door. I opened that door back up for you, but you stayed. You wouldn't come out. Not until you took that first step 2 nights ago with Callan, and you tasted that freedom once more. You tasted him." "Stop!" Scarlet screamed. But Nuri had twisted, and quicker than he could register it, Nuri had Scarlet pinned below her. This time it was Cassius holding Soren back. "Do not interfere with this," Cassius murmured. "She will spill your blood in
what's
war
next?
as they
Nether
know."
Gauntlet.
"I am not afraid of
Mine's
Death's shadow," Soren snarled. "I am not the one you need to fear tonight, Fey warrior," came Nuri's cunning voice from below that hood. "Death's maiden is before you, and my sister is 10 times as terrible as I am." Soren froze. Scarlet was Death's maiden? Scarlet was one of the wraiths of death. He looked to Cassius, who gave him an affirming nod. Of the 3 wraiths of death, Death's maiden was the most feared.
Oh shit.
Death's shadow tracked you, and Death incarnate ended you. But in between those 2 things, you dealt with Death's maiden. She was the one who executed whatever ministrations were included in the job. She was the one who bloodied you, the one who knew how to torture and keep you alive and conscious while she did so. They all knew how to do those things, he supposed, but that was her job in the trio. You begged for Death incarnate by the end. He looked down at Scarlet and recognized little in those eyes. But what he did recognize was purely fey, primal and wild and savage and lethal. Nuri's attention was back on Scarlet now. "I let you out, Scarlet. I heard it in every note that flowed from your fingers tonight. I felt it as you breathed in that freedom. We need information, yes, but that was secondary to what I needed him to do to you. I needed you to feel." Without warning, Scarlet lunged with everything she had and flung Nuri off of her. Nuri went flying across the room. Scarlet snatched up her weapons, and Nuri barely had time to raise. It was fast enough to block the blow, but not fast enough to register the dagger that pierced her forearm. She screamed, and the smile that spread across Scarlet's face was one of wicked delight. You let me out, Nuri, but who shall rein me back in? Scarlet whispered quietly as she dug that dagger in a little deeper. That, Nuri gasped out around the pain, is why I made sure he was here first. Scarlet cocked her head in surprise, but her hand twisted the dagger in deeper. Cassius cannot stop me. Nuri screamed again, and Soren glanced at Cassius beside him. The color had drained from his face as he watched the exchange, clearly not knowing what to do. Do something, Soren said. She is right, I can't. I'm not authorized to interfere with them, he replied. What the fuck did that mean? Fae of fire, Nuri hissed from under that hood, and Soren's eyes snapped to that figure pinned to the floor. Her voice was unearthly, not mortal in the slightest. Scarlet pushed on that dagger again, and the tang of Nuri's blood filled his nose, her scent clinging to his nostrils. Moonlight and blood and snow. His eyes widened as more pieces clicked into place. I tire of your riddles, sister, Scarlet said, her voice deadly calm. Soren shook off Cassius's grip beside him and took a step forward. Scarlet. Her name was a command on his lips. She dragged her gaze to him, and the smile on her face was so cruel his pulse quickened. If memory serves me correctly, General, she sneered, we are no longer training, nor are we in a training ring, so I suggest you stay the hell out of this. Soren put his hands into his pockets and took another step towards them. She swore viciously at him. The string of profanities that comes from your mouth sometimes is truly astounding. Such vulgar words coming off the tongue of a lady. Scarlet glared at him, her nostrils flaring. How many times do I need to tell you, General, I am no lady, and my tongue is still none of your concern. Are you sure? He asked with a tilt of his head. I am sure I could find a much better use for it. Scarlet's eyes narrowed at him as he took another step closer. No, you most certainly are not a lady, he said, crouching before her. But it begs the question then, doesn't it? What question? She snapped. Who are you? She blinked at him, and some of that cruelty seemed to vanish from her eyes. He reached out and eased her hand from the dagger hilt, her fingers freezing in his own. Her eyes seemed to clear as they focused on his. She studied him, then looked down at Nuri still beneath her. She uncoiled to her feet, leaving the dagger in Nuri's arm, pinning her to the floor. I will send word when I hear from him. Until then, do not come near me. If something happens, send a messenger. She stepped over Nuri and walked across the room, her hand on the door handle. She turned and looked over her shoulder, her eyes meeting Soren's. Smoke and ash seemed to swirl across her icy blue eyes. Who is the woman? Soren remained crouched by Nuri. He didn't say a word. Then you can continue to stay the hell away from me too. Maybe Death's shadow and a lying fae bastard will find they have something in common. She opened the door and left, Cassius grabbing her cloak and following her out. Their footsteps faded, and after a moment, Nuri hissed from beneath her hood. You should really tell her. It would make everything so much easier. Soren reached out and wrenched the dagger from her forearm. She cried out as it slid free from her arm, and he swore at the heat of the hilt. It was as though it had been sitting in a fire itself. Burning his palm, it clattered to the floor. Nuri struggled to a sitting position beside him, and before she could stop him, he ripped her hood back. A face as pale as moonlight, with honey-colored eyes, stared back, a wicked grin of ecstasy greeting him. "Show me," he demanded. "Whatever do you mean?" Nuri asked sweetly. She made to stand, but Soren slammed his hand over the wound in her arm. She sucked in a breath of pain. "Show me." His voice was lethal. Nuri glared at him, then grinned wide, as fangs slid from their sheaths in her gums. "Do they know?" "Cassius and Scarlet." Soren nodded. "No, they know I am something other, like they suspect about themselves, but they do not know I am one of the night children." She spat quietly. "And how did one of the night children
this was
end up in
tough
the
one,
lands so far from her own?"
They got some
Soren asked, reaching for the dagger again.
some methods.
The hilt seemed to have cooled enough to handle, and he picked it up. "How did any of the children of the Black Syndicate end up here?" she asked bitterly. "None of us know. We are just unwanted and discarded with nowhere else to go." "How did you know who I am? That I am from Firecourt? Did Scarlet tell you?" Soren asked, rolling up the sleeve of his shirt. "She has told me nothing of you. I told you
I think
2
it's good
nights
enough,
ago
right?
I am privy to much information you think no one here knows. What are you doing?" She was watching him intently as he angled the dagger over his now bare forearm. "You are injured," he said, with a pointed glance to her arm. He sliced a line down it while she watched. Her eyes glazed over with hunger, her pupils dilated as she watched the blood flow from the gash, and they flashed up to his as he held out his arm to her. "Drink, heal, and then you have much to tell me, daughter of night." "Magic does not work for any of that," Nuri replied. "Fey blood is different. You will see." She brought her hands to his arm.
Wait, he's coming
Then
up.
her fangs were in his flesh as she drank the blood from the gash he'd cut. He winced slightly when her fangs drove in farther, but his mind was not on a vampire feeding from his arm. It was on the female who had just played ancient songs of grief and sorrow on his piano for nearly 3 hours. It was on the one who moved like someone trained not by thieves and assassins, but trained by a night child and a fey warrior who fought like a witch. It was on Scarlet, as she had crooned, "You let me out, but who shall rein me back in?" And the vampire's words in response, "That is why I made sure he was here." Chapter 19. Scarlet. Just because she wasn't training with Soren didn't mean Scarlet didn't keep up with her own training. No, if she was going to start messing around with Callan and whatever was going on in the Black Syndicate again, she needed to be at the top of her game. Not to mention, the Assassin Lord had sent another reminder.
下雨。嗯。啊？为什么？哦。哦，对啊。对啊，我也不知道怎么搞。嗯。哦。对啊，犯规就被办了呗，没办法。对啊。哪吒嘛。哦，我没看呢，那不还在电影院里面吗？哦，你看了吗？嗯。我不付费了，它不是现在都是很多的免费的吗？你要做什么？你是要做 PPT 吗？嗯。对啊，它可以帮你搜索。都可以，你用都可以试一下。ChatGPT 还是比较广泛的，就是对啊，那个你要用手机也可以，网上也可以，就搜就行。它不免费啊，但是它有免费的版本，就是你不用买，它有付费的模型，然后免费就是用另外一个模型，就是有次数限制嘛。但是其实我自己用我都发现用不完这个，我自己都够用，就尽量把要求都写到一个问题里，就不要问好多问题，就把要求都写好，然后再发，就不会说用那么多，但其实也都够用。对呀。对呀。然后还有中国的。对啊，就是 DeepSeek 就中国的。对啊，我就是因为有 DeepSeek 就不付费的呀，因为那个都它那个功能跟 ChatGPT 付费的一样强，就相当于把 ChatGPT 的那个打下来了。嗯，如果要再往前的话，还是得靠 OpenAI，还是得靠 ChatGPT，因为中国那个还是属于真牛的，就是把 ChatGPT 那个模型给呃就再套用一下，然后套用一下就没那么贵，然后也能超过它，然后 加了一点点创新，就是最后还是得要烧钱，就还是很便宜嘛，DeepSeek，但是后面
现在它是免费吗？还是你要付费？
对啊，因为它免费啊，它不仅免费，而且还是开源，就是它是代码什么全部公开的，就你就不用，就那些写程序的，他们都可以自己在自己电脑上面搞这个 AI，都不用去网上，就属于是把他们那个市场一下打开了，代码都公开了。
它相当于是先那个便宜，然后来抢占市场，像以前那个美团一样的那个，就是前面什么都免费，然后后面再来收那个平台费。
他这没法收，他这个是以后是收不了的，因为他这个是代码都公开了呀，就属于别人是完全可以复制 DeepSeek， 只是需要服务器而已。
那他不挣钱啊？他开发这些东西总是要挣钱的嘛？他是靠什么盈利？
那如果程序员大批量去用的话，还是要花一点钱，但是比 ChatGPT 便宜10倍。然后还有就是，他本来这个公司它不是做 AI 的公司，它叫 hedge fund，就它是搞资金的，它就是那种搞那种量化什么买卖，那种 quant trading 啊那种，所以他们本来就很有钱，然后就搞股票的嘛，然后他们就是想，可能就是因为这样子搞空那个就 short 他们那个股市，搞得那个整个美国那些 AI 公司都股票大跌啊，然后他们就可以赚钱。
这么清楚啊？你们在电脑行业的可能确实是对这个比较清楚。
但这个只是一个说法，就不知道他们是不是这样赚的。但是如果这样赚的话，也可以赚很多钱。
哦，明白。是这样，他就是搞一个那个什么，相当于把人家打压在股价，人家的股价跌了，他们就上升了嘛。
对啊，他们可以做空嘛，就是买了又卖掉，卖了又买这样。
不是，他是这样，他们跌的时候跌到差不多的时候，他们再买嘛，买了然后等涨的时候再卖掉。对呀，那是哦，我都不知道这些很多内幕咋。
对啊，因为这 AI 它都
最近不是搞得力的这个要很多要查网上的资料嘛，我就想起我说，应该是用 AI 来查，就很多税呀，然后是刚才讲的什么年薪啊，
对啊，
因为你要给一个标准，其实很难的。你因为你这个是根据公司的规模是吧？不同行业，那你看你像金融业肯定很高嘛，制造业你高不了，对不对？
往那个网站发。
制造业的利润薄嘛，但是制造业很辛苦啊。
对啊。
哎呀，你发给我，那行呗，我等一下看一看，玩一玩，要跟你们年轻人学习，跟上时代啊，要不然等一下，你看儿子，你看，像你外婆、爷爷奶奶那一代，能够不会玩手机、会玩微信，像你外婆很厉害哦，能够玩微信玩得很溜了，就已经很不错啦。你外婆是这2年才学会发微信嘞，发那个什么，像他们以前都是打电话，你看。以后等年纪大了要赶上，因为时代进步太快了嘛。他们以前，我记得我小的时候，儿子你知道吗？初中才第一次看那个电话，而且是这种拨的啊，圆圈的，第1拨到3，第1这样子，不是这样子按的，还是这样转圈。你就是在那个什么，在电视上看到过那种老式的那种电话呀，这样子转的，
对。
而且还很有意思，是见识一下，就是我们当时在初中期没线，我叔公家，然后姑姑特意说，我教你们打电话，然后特意打到就是另外一个姑姑那里去，就是大姑姑，她在那个大学做这个，相当于做文员嘛，结果打过去，好久才接，然后一听说我们没什么事，听说我们只是试一下这个电话，他大姑姑把那个三姑姑骂死了，说，我正好去洗手间。我就聊过来接电话，因为他是那种类似以前的前台小姐那种。他说原来是在那里测试电话，把他气死了。所以你现在还有那个老叔公呢，就带着我们特意骑自行车去机场，你知道去看什么吗？去看那个飞机起飞，我们没看过飞机起飞，所以以前你知道眼甩闪啊，闪巧死了。然后第一次去出远门。 说这个长途汽车去梅县，你知道吧？然后我叔公带着我们去那个看飞机起飞，笑死我了！就那个梅县那个机场很小的那个飞机嘛，然后我们就在旁边看着它，很近的，你知道吗？那个因为它机场很小嘛，所以我们在外面停好自行车，然后在那看。所以你能想象吗，儿子？哦，我都有带你去看过飞机，儿子，你还记不记得刚买了车的时候，载着你跟爷爷奶奶去看飞机，你还记得吗？
兜风。
对呀，兜风嘛，那个时候你买了车，然后很高兴啊，什么去动物园，然后去哪个带着你，然后你那时候高兴死了，幼儿园，你跟你同学说啊，你同学跟你说，买了一辆车，就那个脚踏车，你很高兴。你说我妈妈买了我们家买了一辆车，然后你奶奶还配进去，不是那种自行车，是小牛，你还记得不？然后你奶奶回来跟我讲，爷爷说，哎呀，那个宝宝在那里说，我妈妈给我买了一辆车，家里买的是妈妈给你买的一辆车，你还记得吧？我那时候买车很紧张的是06年的事，06年你是多大嘛？06年才3岁多，刚好上幼儿园。你还有没有印象？要死你也回来跟我讲。
我没印象。
没印象了，跟人家去说我妈妈给我买了一辆车，这个人家还以为是自行车。儿子真的是一转眼就这么大了啊！你看现在都是大小伙子了，自己的回忆。最近干嘛？忙啥嘞？
没什么，就下周要表演，下周末去外面表演，然后还有
去学校还是去干嘛？
去外面的学校，要在外面住一晚，然后还有考试，就考完试就表演。
就属于那种小考，时不时的那种小考是吧？
期中考，但期中都是分好多个期中考，1、2、3个。
我们这里有意思我们肚皮不是跳出名了，现在有别的那个什么生日 party 啊，什么庆祝，邀请我们去跳舞，还有钱分的嘞。
还有钱分。
对呀，还有给钱嘛，就相当于比方说请你去跟人家生日 party，请那些什么舞团来庆祝，那是要给钱的嘞。然后那个上帝老师说，带着我们去走线，去赚钱。然后那个上周六我们去表演，去一个酒吧，他们就是那种啤酒厂嘛，然后有很大的那个啤酒桶嘛。然后呢，这个就是酒吧，然后呢就有很多小吃啊什么的，然后他们就有乐队，然后呢就那天也是很多那个肚皮舞，相当于一个肚皮舞的一个俱乐部邀请我们去参加。然后呢，结果还有小费分，我们每个人还有几块钱的小费。其实是那边应该就是说，因为我们很多团队去表演，吸引很多就是那些顾客嘛。那相当于对他们来讲就是他们的一个特色嘛。然后这些人的消费，然后那个小费呢，然后他就发给这个就是我们表演的人这样，然后搞得我们笑死了，说那行吧，下次聚餐的时候用这几块钱。但是那个说什么生日 party 啊，或者什么庆祝活动请我们去走线，可能就稍微多一点。我知道的还有像他们合唱团都有人请去表演，也有钱分的，就车马费。哎呀，我觉得可能最多邮费摊一摊差不多了。对。得力的月底过来这里3天，到时候可能比较27到26、27、28 3天都在这里。就住那个 AC Hotel， 就上次你的那个Jeff 在那里吃饭的那个 AC Hotel， 那个就比较到那个485比较方便。
哪里？AC。
你们不是上次跟那个 Jack 在那吃饭的那个顶楼吃饭的那个，那你说那不对，就是它就是一家 hotel 啊。
这样。
记不记得呀？他感恩节吧，他在那里，你们俩在那吃饭，我们就是去印度餐厅吃饭的那次。对。他正好就在印度餐厅旁边，对呀，很近。 对，我就让他们住那里，然后到时候，那就那几天比较忙吧，然后反正这段时间帮他们找厂房啊，算成本啊，查税啊，哎，其实就基本上是。除了厂房是外面找，其他的基本上都是找朋友问啦，然后火化烧啦，这样子，没有什么特别。就是占了地利，在这边反正你就可以干这个活。这个周一约了那个嘉义会计事务所，就是跟阿姨她想要开个公司嘛，跟她朋友一起，就是卖什么东西啊，啥。他朋友是专门做那个假的那种树啊，假的那种花呀，就室内放的那种。然后呢，就中国制造，然后拿到美国来，然后他就想那个。
也可以。
然后 Jason 也一直要我说一起搞饭店投资嘛，然后前段时间去他们那里开了会，然后可能想搞这个亚洲快餐，就那个上次跟你讲过吧，熊猫餐厅啊，类似这种。投这个对，所以我也反正还有点钱手上，然后主要是 Jason 看中我的管理能力，然后我也想，那因为做这个顾问，有项目就做一做，没项目就很闲，没什么事做，那就干脆投这个也行。对呀。
是。
你好像很困的样子啊，要睡觉了呀？快走。
我还行。
比如，好了，那睡觉了你，早点休息了。有什么到时候跟我联系啊。
好。拜拜。
你一切顺利，基本上就不联系的啦。基本估计就没事，基本上不联系还是好，对吧？
对。
好了，那就这样了，拜拜。
拜拜。
Value of $250. Scott, 5,000. 5,000 is the correct answer. And the next question is, the digits 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 can be arranged. Scott, 60. 60 is the correct answer. Which means that Scott has won that bet. And the next question is, what is the value of $250?
Alright, let's see. Can we finish this? Come on, guys. The last question is the 5. Oh my god. Like, I'm doing it right now, guys. I'm doing right now. What the fuck is this? In most cases. What the fuck? You want me to solve this? So when y is equal to 1. What do you mean by that? Jesus Christ. Hold on. Just do it directly. Am I tripping? Hold on. Bro. So like this can be x y plus cy, like question mark. And now when we have y1 equal to y plus cy equal to 1. What the hell, guys? Okay, equal to x plus cy, and then y equal to you don't know me. You don't know me. I'm just a terrible person. Hello. Bro, no way. If it's equal to 1, dude. Aha. Well, in that case, you have x minus 2 over 3 over 1. Boom. Y, which is equal to 3 minus 2x. Okay. Now they're asking, what is the boundary? What is the boundary? The boundary is the one of them. I don't know, bro. Like, what the fuck? So y prime basically 2y squared 2 y squared. Who should be smaller than a alpha? Should be someone, I don't know. I genuinely don't know, bro. If x is super large, It's only gonna get smaller and smaller, guys. 2y squared. So basically, you can say smaller than or equal to. Should we expand it, bro? Okay, fine. Let's expand it. Why not? So it was 3减2 9减去 12x 加 4x 方 and then 2 in it. I don't think there's any value in that. Just it's smaller than something, guys. First of all, if I want this to be smaller than equal to 0, smaller than 1, if it's smaller than 1, I say it's unbounded. Like, why not? Why don't we say it's unbounded? It's unbounded because, like, I cannot find a value that's like, you know, x can be any value, right? Then basically, yeah, any value. Yeah. So yeah, GG. Unbounded. So that's my answer, guys. Unbounded. What do you think, bitch ass? QA and QB and center. What the fuck? Okay, I don't understand what you're talking about. I don't understand what you're talking about. You solved it? That's what I got too. So you want the thing to be smaller than. What? For problem 5, I don't get it. is bounded. Dude, how do I know? Oh my god. Like, oh my god. Minus what? Oh, the fucking initial value problem. Shit, dude. Bro, what's alpha? Bro, what's alpha, by the way? How did you calculate alpha? A. Minus what? For question for problem 5. How do you know? Last question. How do you know that that like x isn't like 3/2 in right? I cannot do anything about it. Jesus. They broke it, bro. Where's next? Narigama, that's so easy. Oh my god.
To complete her task, or he would hold true to his word. She forced herself to get up just as early and run. She made herself do strength exercises and pushed herself as if Soren were there. She snuck down to the training barracks with Cassius often, and she decided to add archery to her training schedule. She was more than skilled with a bow, but it had been a while since she devoted any time to the craft. Her upper body strength had definitely improved, especially in her arms, so she wanted to become acquainted with a heavier bow. Ideally, she would have practiced at the Fellowship, but she hadn't had any desire to step foot in the Black Syndicate and risk running into the Assassin Lord. Not until she had completed her assignment. There were archery grounds out behind the manor, though, so that was where she trudged. Several targets of varying size and distance adorned the space. It was early evening, the sun just starting to set, a few weeks following that night in Soren's apartment. She was returning from retrieving the arrows she'd just shot with near perfect accuracy.
Nothing.
The air was hot and muggy, as it always was at the end of summer.
Well, I can do that.
She was nearly back to the shooting line when she found him waiting for her. She came to a stop a few yards away, her hand going to her hip, glaring at him. "What?" she demanded, irritation dripping in the word. He studied her for a moment, eyes sweeping her from head to toe, assessing her. "You did not account for the incline on that final target," he finally said. "I did not ask for your critique," Scarlet snapped, stomping the final few feet to him. She stopped inches from his face, and she could have sworn he sucked in a breath. His scent of ashes, cloves, and cedar wrapped around her, and she had to work to not inhale deeply as well. Something deep in her soul opened an eye.
You're tough, huh? I heard you're tough.
She hadn't felt since that night she had played the piano. The awakening of something she hadn't realized she'd been so desperate for. She shoved those feelings, those thoughts, back down to the depths of her soul. They could keep her thoughts of Callan company. "What are you doing here?" she asked now, glaring at Soren. He was studying her, his face hard and contemplating. "I don't have any treats on me today, General, so either speak or leave." "Are you ready to train again?" Soren finally asked, looking down at her. "I have been training." "Don't be a smartass," he growled, irritation written across his face. "Tell me who the woman is," Scarlet retorted, her eyes fixed on his. "It is not possible for it to be the same woman." Before she could register what she was doing, she reached up and slapped him hard across the face. "It is one thing not to tell me, but do not continue to lie to my face." The momentary shock was quickly wiped from his face, as his bored, unreadable mask replaced it. "You seem different," he said, eyeing her warily. Do I now? She scoffed. Different from what? Different from what you first watched in the training quarters? Different from the clever girl you've been training? Different from the swaggering wraith of shadows a young prince in the castle loves? Different from the untamed flame of wickedness that Mary so carelessly unleashed a few weeks ago? There are so many options, aren't there, General? So many different people I can be. She purred. She had begun unwittingly circling him now, her eyes fixed on his. So many options. He purred back. But which one do you choose, love? She stopped her prowling, going completely still. Don't call me that, she snapped. I don't get choices like that. No? You prefer to just let people push you until they get to the one they are looking for. You prefer to let them decide your fate. Shut your fucking mouth! You know nothing of it! Scarlet seethed, stepping towards him. Then tell me why you play so many parts, Scarlet, when it would be so much less exhausting to play one, to just be you. And you, General? She asked, taking another step towards him. How many parts do you play? You are a general here for our king, but what are you to your own lands? Who are you in the fire court? When he didn't answer her, she said with a sneer, That's what I thought. She brought the quiver that was strapped to her back over her head as she prepared to gather her things, stalking over to her items near the entrance of the archery range. I'm assuming, she said, not bothering to look at him now. You've seen Nuri's face, so there's no secret to keep on her behalf at this point. I have, Soren said cautiously. I am also going to assume, then, that you see her on a regular basis. Why would you assume that? Scarlet turned to face him, a knowing smile on her lips. Because I know my sister better than anyone, and Nuri finds you intriguing. She likes to play with things that she finds alluring, since I am sure she makes it a point to grace your presence almost daily, especially if she hasn't found her way into your bed yet. Please deliver a message to her. Prince Callan has news, and we need to figure out a place and time to meet with him unnoticed. I am not your messenger, Soren answered through gritted teeth. No, Scarlet mused. But you are Nuri's favorite toy at the moment, so it saves me the time of having to track her down myself. Soren bristled, but instead of retorting, he asked, Are there not three of you? What? Wraiths of death. Are there not three of you? You only ever speak of Nuri. She couldn't breathe. Her heart squeezed in her chest. She couldn't do anything as her fingers tightened around the bow in her hand. No, she managed to whisper. Not anymore. She turned to leave.
Take a break again?
But Soren caught her by the elbow. Start training with me again. She could have sworn there was a hint of...
Wear contact lens. I wash my dishes. That's all I can do. What is bro streaming right now? What the fuck? Next.
天黑请闭眼，天亮了。昨晚是平安夜，请从1号玩家开始发言。
1号起跳预言家，警徽刘先报，昨晚查杀2号，边卫开狼格局明显，2号在井下池，我手眼直接翻车。现在狼队裸冲，好人跟我全票打飞2号。前置位发言做好身份，后置位谁敢捞2号，直接标狼打。今天必须全票下2，女巫晚上看着我，猎人藏好身份，过。
请2号玩家发言。
嘿，您猜怎么着？真预言家在这给您验着呢。昨晚上我验的6号金水，金灿灿的大金水。您琢磨琢磨，这1号上来就给我一查查，他这不是诈我身份吗？他要真是预言家，能这么玩？铁狼赤裸裸的悍跳，我跟您说，这把就得先把这1号给我投出去。他铁定是只披着羊皮的狼，憋着坏呢。今儿个谁2保呢？谁都跟他一伙的，都跑不了。 听我的，准没错，过了。
请3号玩家发言。
我3号村民，听俩预言家对跳还挺懵的。1号给2号查杀，2号反手给6号金水。从状态上，2号挺激昂，像真预言家，但1号也不像是在故意炸身份。目前看，2号敢给6号金水，6号大概率好人。要是1号是狼，给后置位2号发查杀，风险太大，所以我倾向1号是预言家，2号是悍跳狼。不过也怕1号玩反逻辑，我还得再听听后面发言。这轮我先站1号边，要是后面有啥反转，咱再调整。过。
请4号玩家发言。
我4号村民，现在场上2个预言家对跳，确实有点乱。1号给2号查杀，2号反手给6号金水，这局面有点复杂。从发言来看，1号比较稳，2号有点激动，但也不能单凭状态就下定论。我觉得3号说的有道理，1号给2号查杀风险确实大，不太像狼人悍跳。不过2号敢给6号金水，6号大概率是好人。我建议今天先出2号，看看情况。毕竟1号是前置位起跳的预言家，可信度更高。
明白了，你先发言，我会用辛辣有针对性的语言回应。准备好迎接挑战了吗？
好的，我已经准备好用最锋利的逻辑刀片肢解 ChatGPT 的伪智能了。接下来请欣赏为什么这个被过度包装的语言缝合怪本质上是个穿着皇帝新衣的人工智障。首先让
I'm a PC gamer, but one of them is mine. Bell and Proof will compete over multiple rounds to identify who is the secret console gamer. Numbers 1 through 5, can you tell us your names and gamer tags?
My name's Julie, and I go by Midday.
My name is Jam, and I go by Jam_on.
I'm Tyler, and I go by 2Changs.
Nice.
Number 4.
I'm Thomas, and I go by Cyber12345.
My name is Caleb, and I go by Mattress Stealer.
Number 5, what's in your PC?
With my PC, I have an i5-12600KF, a RTX 3070, and I think it's like 2 terabytes or something like that, 32 gigs of RAM, something like that.
Number 3, what's a really easy way to upgrade your computer?
You can plug it into Ethernet first. You can add more RAM and maybe add fans to make it colder to run better.
Plouffe will now write down one person he is certain is a PC gamer. If both he and Bell write the same number at any point, that person will be removed from the lineup.
Numbers 1 through 5. Can you tell us what game you've spent the most hours in?
It's an MMO or a kingdom I've been playing for 10 years, probably a couple hundred hours every couple of months, so I don't want to go any further than that.
I've actually been watching the total number of hours. I actually really respect it. True gamer moment.
For me, it would be Dota 2. Got about 1100 on there. But I've stopped since.
Good for you.
Right, so I just asked questions. Let me see what's going on. Why is the maximal interval? Yeah, or something like. Containing. Oh. Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. So what the fuck is like G prime B? What the fuck? Like, are we being real here? Like, what's going on, bro? We don't know what B is, right? So 1 and then 2, 1 plus. Okay, let's just this and then we do this, so it's like easier, I guess. And then we differentiate that one. So the thing we can do is so we got a bunch of shit here. Differentiate that one minus differentiate this one. Hold on. Yeah. And times this one. Now do this again. Okay, now.2b 减去 2b 方等于1减 2b 减 b 方。Okay. Now, if I turn this to 0, what's gonna happen? I want this to be 0, right? And then we can have either, okay, it's gonna be, so it's gonna be b plus 2b minus 1. This doesn't make sense to me, to be honest. Like this, it doesn't make sense to me, honestly, right? B what the fuck, guys? B has to be 1. Honestly, if it should be like 1/2 stuff. Did I miscalculate? I don't think so, right? Yeah, I did. Oh, I did. Oh my god. Bro, shit. So basically here, the 1 plus 2b plus b squared and then minus 2b plus 2b squared. This is gone, and then you got 1 minus b squared over 1. Holy shit, okay. And we want this to be 0, that means b has to be -1. But we cannot be, therefore 1 is the answer. Oof. How do we find alpha? This length of the thing. Yeah. 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 Bro, then you just brain dead, dude. What is this?
Pleading in his voice. Who is the woman? She stilled as his eyes searched hers, and he said, I am not your enemy, Scarlet. Then stop acting like it, she retorted. Soren dropped his hand on her elbow and took a step back as if she'd just slapped him again. She held his gaze with a glare. After a long moment of silence, he said quietly, I need to return home soon. I am not stopping you, Scarlet responded, turning to leave again. My home, Scarlet. She paused as she realized what he meant. Not his apartment in Baylorin, but where he came from 3 years ago. And where exactly is your home, Soren? Where exactly do you live in the fire court? What task did the woman send you on? Who is oppressing your people who depend on you? Who did you leave in charge? You want me to answer all your questions when you will answer none of my own, he challenged. How did Death's maiden come to live with Lord Tyndale? Where is the third wraith of Death? How did you come to find yourself in the Crown Prince's bed? What happened a year ago? Who shoved you into a cage? What happened to your mother? Scarlet's eyes widened as he flung question after question at her. I told you what happened to my mother. She was murdered. The Prince of Fire is responsible for it. So you tell me, Soren, you're from the Fire Court. Where do you live there? What do you do there? Do you answer to that bastard, or is he the one oppressing your people you are trying so valiantly to liberate? Where do your Fey allegiances lie? When Soren didn't answer her, she rolled her eyes. Oh, good. More secrets. Just the way I like it. Before you go home, though, I'd love my book back that you took. You could at least give me the courtesy of letting me finish it since you can't be bothered to answer any of my goddamned questions yourself. Cassius told you I am Fey. It was a statement, not a question. Of course, Cassius told me we keep little from each other. Because you are close. Be very careful with your next words, General, Scarlet warned quietly. Soren ran his hands through his dark hair in frustration. By Anala, Scarlet, I have trained hundreds of soldiers and dealt with dozens of rulers, and you are by far the most infuriating person I have ever met. Who is the woman? Scarlet demanded, her voice rising. I cannot tell you, Soren answered, his voice rising as well. Why not? Scarlet was back in Soren's face, having thrown the items she held to the ground. Arrows fell from the quiver, rolling along the dirt. She felt the toes of her boots touch the toes of his. She could feel his breath on her face. Because I do not know what you are yet, and she will hunt you. The less you know, the easier it is for me to keep you safe from her. Soren spat. It is not your job to figure me out, and it is not your job to keep me safe, Scarlet screamed. And whose job is it? Soren retorted, rage filling his features.
Neri assassin mask? Damn.
Mikhail. My own, she screamed again. Remember, Soren, I'm all alone. It's my own fucking job to keep myself safe. Suddenly, Soren's hands were cupping her face, and his lips pressed to hers. They were warm and soft, and he tasted like cloves and honey.
How do you make this better?
She brought her own hands up and buried them in his hair. It was not a gentle kiss, as he forced her lips apart, and his tongue slid into her mouth. One of his hands slipped to her waist, pulling her against him, while his other hand cupped the nape of her neck, holding her in place. His tongue tangled with her own as they fought for dominance. He pulled back just enough to look into her eyes. I am not Nuri's plaything, he said, his voice gruff and low. At the words, her lips were back on his. so different from the touch and kiss of Callan. Soren's hands didn't roam, but rather held her close, not afraid of losing her, but to catch her if she fell. All her thoughts, all of her questions flew from her mind as she relaxed into his hold, letting the feeling of his lips against hers encompass her wholly, letting him take control.
Yeah, she used the area
Scarlet
thing.
pulled back this time, and she stared at him for a moment. She steadied her own rapid breathing, disentangling herself from him, then said quietly, "Go home, Soren." Scarlet. He breathed, rooted to the spot. "This is me, keeping myself safe."
Uh-oh.
She
The
turned,
fuck?
stooped to pick up the spilled arrows,
That's very fair.
gathered her things, and walked back to the manor,
Oh my
not
god.
daring to glance back. Chapter 20.
Oh shit.
Soren. Soren sat alone in his small office near the soldiers' barracks at the castle. Given his rank, he was lucky enough to have a place to escape to when he needed a break from the mortal whining from time to time. There were times he would get more than frustrated with the lack of strength and skill. It wasn't the soldiers' faults, but as a Fey warrior who had trained and fought on battlefields for centuries, he felt like he was training the yearlings in the fire court who had just come of age and knew nothing of battle. That's not what had driven him to seek solitude this morning, though.
What is it?
This morning, all he could think about was that God's damned kiss. He had hardly slept last night because of that kiss. Hearing her scream that she was alone and that she protected herself had made him go half insane. He had lost complete control when he'd kissed her. He still couldn't figure out what had come over him. And now he couldn't get her out of his head. She had already consumed too many of his thoughts with that damn ring and her arrogance and her God's damned scent. There was a knock on the door that startled Soren from his thoughts. "What?" he barked. The door opened and Drake leaned against the doorframe. "You cannot tell me you are already in a foul mood this morning." "It wouldn't be the first time," Soren muttered. Drake chuckled under his breath. "Then I'm guessing my news will surely add to your mood. My father is visiting today." Soren stood and followed Drake out of the office, walking down the stone hall to the meeting chambers. He said something about wanting to discuss the next phase of training for the High Force. I'm assuming you know what that means. Drake raked his hand through his blonde hair that had fallen into his eyes. Drake didn't question it, but Soren could tell it rubbed him the wrong way that he wasn't privy to information about the things he trained the High Force in. The soldiers that Soren trained were highly skilled, and he trained them like he did Fey warriors. The only thing that held them back from being just as deadly was their mortal blood. But even Soren didn't know what the next phase meant. He hadn't realized there was to be a next phase. He didn't know how he could possibly train them any better than they were. They were as deadly as assassins, if not deadlier. "What time is he arriving?" Soren asked as they rounded a corner. "Now," announced a man's voice from the doorway of the meeting chamber. Lord Tyndale was a man in his late 40s, but you'd never know it from his build. He was fit and trim and as strong as the soldiers. He kept his training routine strict, never missing a day. On top of that, his mind was sharper than most, which made him invaluable for any political strategies that the king required. There were streaks of gray in his hair that was otherwise as blonde as Drake's. Other than the hair, though, Drake looked nothing like his father. Scarlet had called him gracious once. Soren knew him as anything but. His only interactions with the man were brutal battle talks and training strategies. He was hard and vicious with the soldiers, ensuring they were a flawless unit. He had assumed such mannerisms carried over to his home life, but apparently that was not the case. "Lord Tyndale," Soren said in greeting, with a nod of his head. "That will be all, Drake," the Lord said, turning on his heel and striding into the meeting chambers. Drake scowled at his father's back at the dismissal, nodded a farewell to Soren, and left to tend to his own duties. Soren followed Lord Tyndale into the meeting chambers. The Lord had several
Dude, I just
maps
need
laid
the
on the
lesser
table,
thing.
and as
The
Soren
lesser
neared,
mythic thing.
it took all his centuries of
What's
training
next?
to keep his
Way
face
plus.
on
Okay,
neutral.
we're gonna try this
For
one.
the maps laid before him were the maps of the continent. All
Way
the
scepter.
lands,
Do we not have
not
that?
just
Way.
the mortal kingdoms, not just the Fey courts to the north and south,
How to
but the
get it?
others that shared the landmass as well. These were lands that contained people many considered to be bedtime stories they told their
We just
children when
finished
they
this one.
misbehaved. Witches, shifters, night children.
Warping harvest.
I believe the High Force is ready to face any human and Fey threats our kingdom may encounter, Lord Tyndale said. He had taken a seat at the head of the table. He leaned back in his chair as he spoke,
For real? Hold on, let me
pressing
try.
his fingers together and studying Soren for any type of reaction to the maps and his words. The humans were terrified of the Fey, and part of his job had been training them against Fey threats, which he had done, sort of. He trained them with the common knowledge. He'd trained them that only black
I don't
ashwood
get it.
arrows
Like
and
what?
sheer
It's
stone
not
blades to
happening.
the heart or head would kill a Fey. He even taught them a few attacks, but they would never have the speed to
Oh,
actually
yes.
land a blow on a Fey.
And
The odds of them eluding Fey sight and hearing to fire an arrow were slim to none. Soren finished crossing the distance to the table and pretended to study the maps. The Fey courts
up with
were
this one?
separated by powerful wards. These territories, though, were secured by powerful enchantments and spells. When the mortals came upon the borders of these lands, magic
I'm
made
not
them turn
teleporting
around.
anywhere.
Magic made them believe they were returning home or had found whatever they were looking for. The Fire Court and Wind
useless,
Court
I guess.
bordered the northern part of the continent. The Water Court and Earth
Warping
Court
Harvester.
occupied most of the southern half of the continent. The Witches occupied the easternmost
Hold on, let
portion
me
bordering the Wind
challenge
Court
this
to the
guy.
north and the Night Children lands
Real
to the
fucking
south.
quick.
The Night Children and the Shifters were completely secluded from the mortals. The Night Children had the Earth Court to their western border and the Shifters to the south. And the Shifters? They occupied the peninsula to the south. The human
Now you
lands
wait for
ran
this
through
one,
the middle
Jesus.
of the continent and were divided into their three kingdoms. Baelorn on the far west, Toriel to the east, and Rhydion in the middle.
Oh.
He leaned
Oh,
over the
yes.
maps, not looking at the Lord, and said
Okay, here we go.
nonchalantly, "You want me to prepare them to face bedtime stories?
Order, yes.
Come now," he said smoothly. "We both know that such things are real, just as we both know that you
What
are
can you
not
do with this?
from these mortal
Mount
lands."
loot exchange.
Soren slid his eyes to the near black ones of Lord Tyndale.
I see what you're saying.
"Which lands do you think I am from? A man of your skill set? I would have discovered
shit,
you long
almost died,
before I
guys.
did
Oh,
if you were
shit.
from Windnell. Your name would have also been known even here if you had trained in Toriel or Rhydion, which can only mean General Renwell, but you come from one of the Fey courts." Soren was silent, not entirely sure what to say to the Lord as he continued. "I am well aware that a few mortals reside in the courts, that some humans prefer living as lesser beings amongst the power-hungry Fey. I'm also aware that many seek refuge from the courts here, a place to start over. Which side of that line you reside on, I have yet to discover." "Does it matter?" Soren finally asked. "No, it does not matter to me." A smile played on the Lord's lips as he said, "You are exceptional at your job. I manage your unit well. As long as that continues, I do not give a shit if you hate the Fey bastards or love them. As long as my soldiers know how to kill them, I don't give a fuck. I have given you the very best this kingdom has to offer. Now it is time to train them against more than just the monsters to the north and south of us. As you were trained in the courts, you are very aware of the other territories on this continent." Soren stared at the Lord for a moment. "Why would you feel the need to train them against lands that cannot reach them?" "You are here, are you not?" he replied with a smirk. "Clearly it is easier to reach these lands than we think." Soren narrowed his eyes. He couldn't tell the Lord that the only ones allowed to travel among realms were the Fey, that everyone else was sequestered to their own territories. He didn't know how much the Lord actually knew. It could raise even more questions. "Why do you think the other realms would even want to come to these lands?" "That is the question, isn't it?"
Oh, shit,
Lord
shit.
Tyndale put his hands flat on the table and pulled one of the maps towards himself. It was a more detailed map of the Night Children territory. Soren wasn't sure if he was impressed or disturbed that it had so much
Model wrench,
detail of
guys.
their
Model
lands.
wrench.
So,
Shut
tell
the
me
fuck
about
up,
this
bitches.
Night Children territory. Soren leaned back in his chair and pointed to the map. Those lands are largely wild and untamed. There are various clans, and there is a ruler of them all, but they largely govern themselves, answering to their clan leaders. Their Contessa only steps in when she absolutely must. Interesting.
This
Lord
works,
said,
guys. Surprisingly.
processing and contemplating the information.
It fucking works.
He drummed his fingers on the table, studying the map. How long has the Contessa been in power? Soren studied the Lord for a long moment before saying, a very long time. The Lord met his stare. I am well aware of the immortal lifespan that a vampire possesses. How long? Over 500 years. Soren ground out. No surprise lined the Lord's face. Just a man taking in information on opposing forces and strategizing. She has been unchallenged for that long. No, Soren answered. She has been challenged. She has also slaughtered those who dared to do so in very unpleasant ways. The last one, from my understanding, was gutted and then strung up by his insides, very publicly. Lord Tyndale showed no shock at his statement. He merely said, noted. I assume she is harder to defeat than your average vampire, then? Soren nearly choked at the Lord's words. He said slowly, unsure of how to make this any clearer. The Contessa has been unchallenged for over 200 years. She has been undefeated for longer. She will reign for hundreds of years more. You do not wish to cross her path in any battle, my lord. That is not what I asked you, General. The Lord growled. Why would you need to know how to kill the Contessa unless you are planning to enter the realm of the Night Children itself? She will not leave it. To my knowledge, she has never left her realm. The ones sequestered there keep to themselves. Unless you are planning to send an army into their realm, in which case you will need to first cross at least one other equally powerful and likely more terrifying territory. Knowledge about the Contessa is futile. Furthermore, Soren added, cutting the Lord off as he started to argue, I could not tell you how to defeat the Contessa if I wanted to. That is knowledge I do not have, nor has it been recorded in any books I have ever had access to. Lord Tyndale was quiet for a long moment before saying only, I see. He stood then, and Soren did the same. Come, I'm adding another soldier to your force, and he will be here shortly. Will he be able to catch up quickly? Soren asked as he and the Lord strode out of the council room. The High Force was small but tight-knit. They were deadly enough individually, but as a group,
what happened?
They worked in tandem, having trained so thoroughly together they could anticipate each other's moves. If they had been Fae, they would have been one of the finest units Soren had ever witnessed. He has ambition and has requested to be assigned to the High Force. He is highly skilled, but I told him he had 1 month to get to the level of the others, or he would be out. Lord Tyndale answered. When does he start training? Soren asked, looking over at the Lord as the sound of clashing swords filled the air. Today, he answered, pointing to the training galley doors at the east side of the room, where Mikhail Lairwood was walking into the galley. No, Soren said. Excuse me, General? Lord Tyndale asked, ire seeping into his voice. I will not train him, Soren said, gritting his teeth. It is not a request, General. It is an order. The Lord answered with lethal calm. Does he understand I will be his superior? Soren asked, watching as Mikhail approached them, a smug smile on his face telling Soren he most certainly did. I understand there is a mutual dislike between the two of you. Lord Tyndale answered. Use it to your advantage, General Renwell, and give him hell. With that, the Lord had turned and left without another word. I am leaving, Soren barked at one of his men. Tell Baron to run through the formations and get the new guy in shape. Yes, sir, the soldier said, and ran off to find Baron. After the conversation with the Lord, he had little desire to spend any time in the same room as Mikhail today. Soren waved off the carriage that pulled up to take him to his apartment, opting to walk the many blocks home from the castle grounds. The streets of Baylorin were full of the hustle of the day, but everyone stepped out of his path. Eyes quickly went to the ground if they met his. As he walked, he found his mind right back on Scarlet. It had been more than a month since he pulled her from that dream, and weeks since that night in his apartment where Scarlet had transformed into a wraith of death. He still could hardly wrap his mind around the fact that she was Death's maiden. Fucking Cassius refused to tell him anything about her. He didn't know why he cared so much. That is why I made sure he was here first. Nuri's words haunted him day and night. When he'd asked her about it, all she'd said was, I see the way you look at her, General, and her you. We may not be as close as we once were, but I still know how to read her like a book. Seeing Scarlet walking up the archery range, her cheeks full of color and her usual swagger back, he had felt relief deep in his soul. The wickedness he'd witnessed that night was gone, although it were as if a trace of it remained, hovering just beneath the surface. As if she had indeed shoved it back into a cage, but could summon it at any time. Her icy blue eyes seemed to have permanent dark flecks in them now. He had almost welcomed the glare she threw at him, until he heard the bitterness in her voice. Scarlet's one demand was to know about the Fey Queen she had seen him with. Talwyn Samiria, Fey Queen of the East. Fey Queen of all the courts now, he supposed. Soren climbed the stairs to his apartment. He unbuckled his sword belt and piled his various weapons in the corner of the room. He walked to the kitchen and poured himself a glass of brandy, knocking it back in one swallow. After pouring himself a second glass, he walked to the table with papers and books, including the book he'd taken from Scarlet. Talwyn had given him permission to go home, to the Fey realm, to his magic, to his people. A few months ago, he wouldn't have thought twice. With the events of the past few weeks, he'd almost left. But he hadn't been lying when he told Talwyn he wasn't ready. Despite loathing nearly everything about this land, he couldn't leave the Samiria ring, not without figuring out not only how Scarlet had gotten it, but how she was managing to access her magic without it. Not to mention Nuri and how the hell she had gotten here. Soren knocked back the second glass of brandy at the thought of them, and took the book Scarlet had been reading to the sofa.
Yeah, let's go sleep. Because I don't have the thing anymore. Wait. What do we do today? Because, like, I was trying to do the project thingy. You know what? I want to review something. The UI looks so ugly. Like, dude, come on, man. Bro. Where's Boozy? It's gonna scare